The Idol Hero Songstress by DrgnMstr. Chapter 2. A Really, Really Bad Day. Now, before we start this one, I do need to let you know that there is a trigger warning. This chapter is going to cover some elements of depression, hopelessness, and suicidal thoughts without actions. If this is triggering for you, I recommend skipping this one or having someone nearby to talk it out with. With that being said, let's get into the video. Life continued to get worse throughout the rest of elementary school, and even into middle school. Every day Izuku would go to school, try to avoid Kachan, often get beat up and or ridiculed by the same boy, and dream of being a hero. His notebooks, which he had started after developing his quirk, turned from analyzing his own useless quirk to analyzing both heroes and villains that showed in the news or he saw personally in fights. So far, he had about 12 complete hero journals and 6 complete villain journals. Of course, Katsuki thought this hobby of his to be a sign of stalking tendencies, and therefore found it creepy, ultimately deciding to punish him for it whenever he saw a journal. About midway into his second year of middle school, Izuku started his 13th journal, when he witnessed a villain fight along the way to school. While witnessing a hero-villain fight was not unusual for him, seeing the debut of a new hero, Mount Lady, was. He spent so long taking down notes and making speculations regarding her quirk that he had barely made it to class on time. His teacher glared at him, which he was used to seeing as it had become a common occurrence over the years. It became quite evident that the teachers didn't like him, as the bullying by his peers increased. After all, the teachers at the school would either ignore him, what happened to him, or passively participate. Some teachers would even cheer the bullies on, and therefore complaints always fell on deaf ears. Thus, it was with a sense of dread that he heard his homeroom teacher start talking about their plans for the future. This would in no way end well. That sentiment proved true as the teacher then just announced to everybody that they all wanted to become heroes before throwing the career forms in the air. Almost everyone in the classrooms started cheering and showing off their quirks, with the only exceptions being Bakugou and Izuku. True to the promise he had made to himself in his early childhood, Izuku would not activate his quirk in school. Of course, that didn't prevent the blonde bomber from doing anything he wanted. "Hey, Teach! Don't try to lump me in with all these extras. They'll only wind up being some sidekicks to some D-lister hero if they're lucky. I'm the only one in the school with both the brains and the quirk to get into UA." As many of the other students started protesting the loud boy's statement, the sometimes boy, sometimes girl started sinking further and further into his desk, hoping beyond hope that he wouldn't be noticed. Sadly, this is not the rule that the universe has picked out for Midoriya Izuku. "Oh, that's right," their homeroom teacher absent-mindedly stated, as if just seeming to realize. Midoriya-kun also declared his intention to go to UA. There were times that Izuku really hated his teachers, and this was one of them. "Why did you have to set me up like that?" Not even a moment later, Izuku's desk had exploded into a pile of rubble. Kachan had a hold of Izuku by his shirt and was snarling in his face.
I'm surprised that a worthless Deku like you would have even decided to try out for UA in the first place. You can't make up your mind if you're a boy or a girl. Well, let me make this easy for you. Find another school, and while you're at it, find something else to do. After all, a wishy-washy it like you will just get somebody killed.
Bakugou, sit down, the teacher half-heartedly ordered. The blonde boy waited just a moment longer before releasing Izuku. In a low voice, he added, "This isn't over." Given the look in the other boy's eyes, Izuku found himself wishing that using his quirk could allow him to evade what was going to happen after school. From past experience, Izuku knew that the likelihood of that happening was very slim indeed. Given his premonition, the nervous teen decided to try to leave as soon as the bell rang. He knew the chances of him avoiding Kachan were slim, but he still had to try, even if it was an unfounded hope. So while he flinched when a hand slammed on his replacement desk, he was far from surprised when he wasn't fast enough to escape his tormentor. Just a second, y'all.
Deku, I told you we weren't done. Don't think you get to just get up and leave after that crap you pulled today.
The blonde-haired teen snarled as he snatched up the last of the books that Izuku was trying to put away, which just so happened to be his most recent hero journal.
Hero analysis for the future number 13, the blonde only sneered. When are you gonna get it through your thick skull that there is no way an indecisive weakling like you can be a hero? Your power is absolutely useless for heroics, and you're so bad at living that there is absolutely no way that you would be able to help anyone. Because you're not a he or a she, you're a thing. Hell, I don't even know if you would be considered alive. But still, you insist that you can be a hero despite the quirk that you have.
Kachan, I'm not a thing, Izuku stammered out in protest to this new insult. I can be a... The smaller boy's protests were immediately silenced by an explosion, as Kachan slammed his fist into his palm, which just so happened to hold Midoriya's notebook. The bully made sure to look his prey in the eyes as he tossed the notebook out of an open window, almost as if daring the song-sexual teen to try and get it.
You know, all heroes have an origin story. Mine will be that I'm the only student to make it out of this crappy school into UA. That isn't my ego talking. I'm just that good. And no villain like you is going to ruin it for me.
Villain? Izuku tried to protest as his eyes grew wide as saucers. What are you...
Shh. You are bane to your family's life by your mere existence. Because of you, your father left. Your mother got fat and she has spent most of her time crying because she can't get your head on straight. Even the densest piece of metal in the world would have figured it out by now. And since you're definitely smarter than most of the extras in this class, that can only mean you enjoy torturing your family and everyone around you.
Bakugou's grin was wide and truly sadistic at this point, as he looked down on the brow-beaten boy.
So, I consider you to be the first villain of many I will stop.
At this declaration, Izuku Midoriya's head fell to his chest, just so Bakugou could not see his face, which caused him to miss the angry teen's joyous expression at finally having gotten under Izuku's skin.
I'm glad we finally came to an understanding. Of course, this means you will not be applying to UA. UA is not a school for villains.
Bakugou's two cronies appeared to agree with him, and were taunting the crying boy too. The three then started to leave the classroom, when Katsuki got one final idea.
You know, there is one way to improve your lot in life, and maybe be a hero for once.
The part boy, part girl barely risked a lick up, allowing for Izuku's childhood friend to finish with.
Take a swan dive off the roof and pray to be more useful in your next life.
The door slammed shut, leaving the song transsexual alone with his grief. Just a second, y'all. It took about 15 minutes before Izuku was calm enough to leave.
Stupid Kachan. What would he have done if I chose to take that advice seriously?
He lied to himself as he fished his notebook out of the pond that it had landed in after being thrown out of the window.
That would destroy his hero career before it even got started. Inciting a suicide is definitely not heroic. And he's calling me a villain?
The last thought made the young boy freeze as a small part of him rebelled against the barest hint of a thought that Kachan could be anything but a hero. But try as he might, he simply could not reconcile Katsuki's actions today with the image of a great hero that he had held for his childhood friend for so long. The inner turmoil continued as the green-haired boy slowly began to make his way home. Because of this, he didn't even realize that he was taking a different route than usual. He hardly paid attention to his surroundings as the inner debate waged on in his head, with no seeming resolution in sight. In fact, only the sound of metal scraping against asphalt behind him snapped him out of his inattention to make him realize that he was not where he thought he was. By then, it was too late. Just as Izuku began to turn around to find the cause of that noise, he felt the rather unpleasant sensation of something slimy and wet crawl up his body to envelop him.
Great! A medium-sized invisibility cloak,
a baritone voice called out. The middle schooler frantically attempted to claw at the liquid body surrounding him, but was unable to dislodge the seemingly gallon of sludge pouring down his throat.
Don't worry, kid. It will only hurt for a few minutes. Then it'll all be over. But look at it this way. You were my hero.
Is this it? Is this how I'm gonna die? Well, at least I'll stop being a burden to everyone else.
He thought to himself as he felt his body start to weaken. But as his world started to darken, a loud clanging noise echoed throughout the tunnel, followed by a strong gust of wind blowing past his body just before the struggling boy passed out. Izuku was really surprised to be hearing or feeling anything as he slowly made his way out of the darkness. So much so, in fact, that he really didn't care at first if the voice sounded distant and a bit garbled. But very soon, everything came back into focus as he felt something repeatedly slapping his face and a deep voice saying, "Hey, wake up!" repeatedly. As he slowly returned to the world of the living, he started to blink his eyes open, only to see All Might's anxious face quite near to his. An anxiety learned from a lifetime of being victimized quickly caused Izuku to scramble away from the number one hero with a surprised "Eeh!" All Might quickly stood up straight from his leaning over positioned his hands in front of himself with palms open facing the panicking boy, with a stereotypical grand smile on his face before quickly saying, "It's good to see you awake. I was beginning to get worried that we would need to call an ambulance for you."
I'm okay.
Izuku finally managed to get out after about half a minute of unintelligible sputtering.
What happened?
Well, I'm sorry to have gotten you involved in my mess. I'm normally much better than that, All Might answered with a great deal of regret. I'm very unfamiliar with the sewer systems in this area, so it took me longer to get to that villain than it normally would. You appeared to fall unconscious just as I got to the scene, so I had to act quickly to save your life. But fear not, for I have defeated and captured the villain. All Might then held up a couple of bottles full of green sludge, one of which had an eye looking outward. After giving Izuku another cursory examination, he continued. Well, it appears as if you are okay. So, if you'll excuse me, I need to turn this villain in. As All Might began to stretch his legs in an apparent preparation for leaping away, Izuku could not help but think to himself, shouldn't he call for medical attention? Just to make sure I'm okay? Especially since I passed out. But that thought was quickly set aside as Izuku's inner fanboy surfaced. Wait, he's about to leave and I hadn't even asked him. I haven't even gotten his autograph. The green ant reached out his hand, fingers up and palm outward, as if to stop the hero from leaving while asking, Wait! Can I get your autograph? A fanboy must have priorities, right? A stray gust of wind then opened the notebook that fell out of his backpack when he was attacked, showing the words, All Might, written fancily across the 2 pages. You already did! But please, before you go, I must ask you something important. Unfortunately, a hero's work is never done. Therefore, I'm sorry, but I really must go. All Might exclaimed as he crouched down. He was just about ready to take off when he heard the young teenager plead with him to wait once more. I really can't, he announced once again. With this, the incredibly tall blonde launched himself up into the air. Almost immediately, he noticed that something was not quite right. It was as if his sense of balance was thrown off. Finally, he registered what was, to him, a rather negligible weight attached to his leg. He looked down to see a freckled face with green hair staring up at him with wide eyes and a mouth flapping in the wind. Hey! I appreciate the support of my fans, but this is going a bit too far. Let go! Izuku tried to resist All Might's efforts to push him off his leg while exclaiming, I can't! If I do, I'll die! All Might stopped pushing for a moment and took stock of the situation before realizing that the teenager was right. But his time was running out, and he needed to get clear of the teen, and fast. After hiding a bloody cough, he said, Okay then, hold on a bit longer and tuck your face in. I'll find a place for us to land. At first, he thought about landing on a roof and then immediately bounding away again, but that would likely put him in the same situation as he is in now, as the fanboy would likely immediately latch on again. However, he knew he did not have time to use any other method of escape. Finally, he decided to land on a nearby roof and plead with the boy. If that didn't work, then he would have to attempt to move faster than the boy could glomp. It came to absolutely no surprise to All Might when his appeals did not work. For some reason, the boy seemed almost desperate for answers to his question. Therefore, he prepared to escape, but before he could make another attempt, his transformation released, revealing a tall skeletal form of himself. It took the older man a few minutes to calm the startled boy down before he could start to explain. Okay, kid. I must ask you not to tell anyone what you had seen here. I'm sure you're shocked, but there's a good explanation for the way I look. You see, I was heavily injured in a battle about 6 years ago. He began as he pulled up his shirt to show a spiderweb-looking scar on his left side. It destroyed all my left lung and most of my stomach. If any villain had found out about this weakness, then the repercussions could be disastrous.
Did Toxic Chainsaw do that?
No, that punk wishes he were strong enough to do this. The fight that caused this injury is not one that is known to the rest of the world, so again, I just ask you to keep this to yourself. The skeleton asked as he put his shirt back down. After getting a rapid nod in response from the fanboy, All Might asked, "So, what was the question you were needing to ask me?"
Well, why? You see, all my life I've had this useless quirk. I mean, it's really rather embarrassing. Izuku starts to explain. All it does is change me to a girl whenever I sing a song, either sung by or about a female. It really doesn't do anything else. I mean, it does make me look like a younger version of the female artist, but that's about it. The Grey ducked his head down as blush covered his face out of the mortification that he experienced even talking about this. And the transformation only lasts about 10 minutes. I don't even gain the singer's quirk. So, as I said, it's really rather useless and embarrassing. Some people even say I should want to be a girl full time because of this. So, my question is, can I be a hero, even with this useless power?
Unfortunately, All Might was more thinking of his need to get away from the boy than he was addressing his full concern. Therefore, he gave an answer that he would soon come to regret. Midoriya, my boy, there are two things I need to say. The first is that quirks can often cause unwanted changes in a human body. You should take your time and consider where you want to go and what you want to be. There's no shame in being female. You should not be embarrassed about that. About being a hero, I'm afraid this job is just too hard for somebody with a quirk that would never provide them with a real benefit. And I cannot think of a benefit your quirk would provide. That is not to say that your quirk is useless, however. I'm sure you could find some use for your quirk, just not in the hero profession. I'm sorry, my boy, but perhaps you should find something else. His answer given, All Might stood up straight from the kneeling position he had been in and began making his way to the door leading into the building. It's good to have dreams, but you should shoot for something a bit more realistic. Maybe something in the music industry. Or, if you want to do something that could help people, maybe a member of the police department, or as a paramedic. They might not get the recognition they deserve, but I'm sure you could find a satisfactory life in either profession. And who knows? You may find a use for your quirk in one of those professions. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go. I'll leave the door open so you can make your way down to the street. Unbeknownst to both conversationalists, their discussion was not quite as private as they would wish. As such, Izuku had a witness when he broke down in tears. The teenager curled his hands into fists as 1,000 different thoughts ran through his head like a tidal wave. His observer grew concerned, and the sobbing boy made his way over to the fence surrounding the rooftop of the building. But the young man did not appear to be trying to climb over that fence, so he did not intervene. Instead,
the small figure listened in to the mutterings of the small child. I guess that's it then. Kachan had it right all along. I guess I really am useless. I mean, even All Might said so. I knew my quirk would be useless as far as helping me to be a hero, but I at least thought there might be some way. And even thinks I should be female. I mean, I don't feel like a girl, but how would I know what it feels like to be a girl? For that matter, how would I truly know what it feels like to be a boy? I guess Kachan was right about this too. I really am too indecisive to be of much use. Damn it! The sobbing teen picked up his head and looked beyond the fence to the skyline beyond. Perhaps the world would be better off without me, but I'm too much of a coward to take my own life. I should just go home. Growing even more concerned, a short white shape began to discreetly follow behind Izuku as the green-haired boy made his way down to the street. Izuku had not made it more than a block away from the building when he heard some explosions a few blocks away. At first, he barely registered the sounds. The next few caused him to flinch when they occurred, as they reminded him of Kachan's explosions. But he was so lost in thought up to that point, he had not even noticed where he was going. And years of habit made his autopilot take him toward the explosions instead of away. After all, it might be some villain attack. His unconscious mind drew him toward the trouble like a moth to a flame. But even in his distracted state, he could not ignore a mass of people appearing before him. How did I end up here? He could see the skeletal form of All Might leaning against the building, clutching at his shirt while watching what was going on beyond the crowd, but he ignored the man in favor of trying to determine what was going on. It was then that he heard a familiar shout followed by a couple more explosions. That sounded like Kachan! Izuku made his way over to the side of the crowd near an alleyway to get a better look. He nearly panicked when he saw the same slime villain from before wound around the explosive teen. It sounded like his childhood friend was losing. But Kachan never loses! And why aren't the heroes doing anything? Just then, he felt something clench in his chest as voices from the past rang through his head. Perhaps you should give it up. You're a worthless Deku. You're so indecisive. You'll never be a hero. Just give it up already. Take a swan dive off the roof. Be more realistic. As those and a myriad of other thoughts flooded through his mind, the hurting boy stumbled into a nearby alleyway. The clenching sensation in his chest grew tighter, causing his erratic thoughts to freeze in midstream. At that moment, his desire to save his childhood friend sparked a memory from his early childhood that he had forgotten. A glimpse of power that could save Kachan. Almost as of its own volition, his mouth opened, and he began to sing. So if you want to listen to the song that he sings here, it's the Sailor Mercury theme song. Izuku's body began to glow as it decided to move on its own. He quickly made his way up to the nearest fire escape to start climbing up the building. At first, he didn't even notice as his legs grew longer and thinner, nor did he notice circles of water swirl around him, changing his clothing. However, he did notice when his voice started to change into that of the females. It almost caused him to stop singing, but something urged him on to continue, no matter what. The now blue-haired girl made her way up to the rooftop overlooking the hostage situation below. She was wearing what could only be described as a white sailor's uniform with puffy shoulder pieces and a dark blue skirt that seemed to match her hair.
She wore white gloves that went to the elbows, ending in blue bands. Her dark blue boots were knee-length with a 1.5-inch heel and pointed at the knee, trimmed in white. There were large bows tied behind her back, and at the base of the V-shape at the front was a large heart-shaped pennant prominently displayed on the bow on the front. Finally, she wore a golden tiara on her forehead with the symbol of the planet Mercury etched into a blue jewel in the center. Funnily enough, her eyes stayed green. After the transformation, she felt all the water in the air near her come under her command. A large part of her had no idea what she was going to do, but she kept singing the song until about halfway through, stopping at that point as she was just about out of time to act. But then a thought appeared in her head as she instinctually knew what to do that moment. She stopped singing. "Sabon spray freezingu," she yelled as she crossed her arms before her. A stream of bubbles condensed from the water in the air, quickly cooling as energy flowed out of them and into the girl. When she swung her arms in front of her hands cupped in front of her pointed towards the slime villain, causing the bubbles to be shot down towards the slime villain and freezing him to the spot. Miraculously, Bakugou was not frozen at all, and his next blast blew the villain into chunks, allowing him to escape. As the boys started coughing up pieces of half-frozen slime monster, she called out to the heroes below who had collectively turned to stare at her. "You have 3 minutes to gather up all the pieces before it thaws out." Instructions given, the blue-haired girl turned and started running back toward the fire escape to quickly make her way down to the ground. The heroes on the scene were far too shocked to give chase, allowing the girl ample time to escape. Although after her disappearance they took her words seriously as they began to collect all the pieces of the slime villain before it thawed out. Fortunately, they managed to collect most, if not all, of the pieces before he thawed and reverted to the form of an unconscious human being. However, this did not mean that she completely got away unnoticed or unfollowed. All Might followed a short distance behind the retreating form of the teen as he made his way down the street, the singer having just transformed back from that girl from a couple minutes ago. His mind wandered at the explanation that Midoriya gave him about his Quirk. How could he think that useless? He didn't quite know what was going on with the boy, but he resolved to find out as soon as he could. And who knows, maybe One for All would make his Quirk stronger, or more dependable. Once he was certain of the route the young boy would take on his way home, All Might looped over to a side street to get in front of him. But before he could loop back around to intercept the boy, a squeaky familiar voice called out to him. "Yaki-san, a moment, please." Toshinori stopped and turned around to see a rat dog bear thing following not far behind him. "I would suggest that you let me handle this. With the state of mind he is in, I doubt very seriously that he would be willing to talk to you." Ignoring how the principal of UA knew what was going on, much less knew anything about the boy's state of mind, he focused on the matter at hand to lose as little time as possible. "What do you mean? What state of mind?" the skeletal man asked, his head tilting to the side in confusion. Principal Nezu sighed and shook his head from side to side before looking up into the taller man's eyes. "That you have to ask that question just proves my point. I understand you were in a hurry, but you destroyed that young man's spirit and dream up on that roof. Obviously, he is distraught over that. Now is not the time to discuss what happened, nor is it time to argue about this. But I'll tell you now, if you go out there, don't be surprised if he rejects you." Unfortunately, Being the number one hero is not something that someone can earn without having a stubborn streak. If what you say is true, then it is even more important that I go out there to correct it. If you'll excuse me, I really need to go make this right. Before Nezu could say another word, Toshinori moved to get around the mammal and ran to get ahead of Izuku. With a deep sigh, the principal of UA took out a cell phone and hit a speed dial number. Midnight? I need you to find the address for the Midoriya residence. Once you find it, text it to me, and then make your way there. I'll explain everything when I get there. But there is a young man with a promising future that is in desperate need of help. And I feel that it's going to be something that you are best qualified to handle. After getting an affirmative response from Midnight, he hangs up his phone and then scurries over to watch the train wreck that was about to occur. I am entering the street like a normal person, the exuberant hero form of All Might announced as he slid into view. He did not miss the young man's reaction this time, which seemed severely muted compared to the nervous wreck from before. Young Midoriya, I feel I need to talk to you about what happened. Izuku barely flinched when All Might came into view, but still blinked in surprise as he was jostled out of his thoughts. All Might? About what happened? Yes, young Midoriya. I saw what happened with that slime villain and that young explosive boy. I saw a blue-haired girl save him, and followed to see what she was doing, but I could scarcely believe it when that young girl turned out to be you. He started to explain. As he finished saying this, he turned back into a skeletal form, and put his hands up in the negating manner. You're not in trouble or anything, but I wanted to ask about that power you showed. I thought you said your quirk couldn't do anything other than change your gender. I normally can't, the green-haired teen responded. I have no idea what happened. Well, my boy, if you can replicate that power, then I'd say you could Stop! Izuku interrupted, with fresh tears rolling down his face. Please, don't. Just don't. But Midoriya, the hero started to protest, apparently confused. No. Please don't say it. You once stated in an interview that no matter what someone's quirk was, anyone could be a hero. Toshinori's face fell when he was reminded of that interview, realizing too late just how much he had failed this boy. But you told me I couldn't be a hero because my quirk couldn't help me. So, please. I'm sorry to have bothered you. And I won't tell anyone your secret, but please, don't. Once again, the teen's heart started to clench as he faced the man who destroyed his dream, and reinforced everything Bakugou said about gender. He grew increasingly frustrated at his inability to get his point across, and once again, he felt that power rise within him, urging him to sing, but this time it manifested differently. When he opened his mouth, he sang. And here he sings In Between by Linkin Park. This felt different. Instead of transforming as when he sung female-related songs or doing nothing, as it had in the past with other songs, he felt his emotions and thoughts stretch across the distance separating them. Izuku could see memories flash in his mind, feeling the pain associated with them, and he could sense them start to be projected toward the hero, allowing for communication on a deeper level. The blonde man's eyes widened as the memories of an abused and beaten boy resonated through him. He felt the physical and emotional pain
and confusion the boy experienced in his life as he caught snippets of memories from the teen's point of view. He realized right then how those words he said on the roof could only be yet another layer of sorrow heaped on a boy who did not deserve it. Maybe I should have let Nezu handle this after all. Izuku, in the meantime, continued to sing, energy pouring from every fiber of his being as the song provided a pathway for his thoughts, his dreams, his hopes, his fears, and the suffering he endured in an uncaring world. He felt more and more drained with each verse, but still he sang. His eyes started to dry out, which was odd, given his family's propensity for crying. But flashbacks of various scenes played on as he sung, and somehow, he knew All Might could see and feel them too. When Izuku couldn't stop singing, a part of him didn't want to. Another part of him was trying to analyze what was happening. He could feel this part of his quirk being powered by a previously untouched part of his being, but he wasn't sure how or what. He wasn't sure if he liked this part of the power, but he couldn't deny it was a part of his quirk. He just had to hope this power was something he could gain better control over. He would have to figure it out later, though. For now, he had to finish getting his point across. As this part of the song is sung, the American-styled hero is shown their rooftop conversation from his point of view. He saw himself as a man judging the boy like the rest of the world had, and knew for certain at that very moment what his words had done to him. Finally, the power was starting to release them, and as the song neared its end, Izuku gave the deflated hero a watery smile, and moved to walk past the man. He only turned his head at the end to sing the last part of the song to him. The only thing worse than one is none. The song finished. Izuku made his way toward his home while leaving All Might to do with those feelings as he would. Never before had failure cut so deep. As the number one hero watched the boy walk away, he thought back to their interaction on the roof. As the memory played in his mind, he could see, and in some fading memory-like sense feel, the betrayal that young Midoriya felt. He realized such feelings could only mean one thing. The boy looked up to All Might, not just as the number one hero, but as an example of true heroics, and even got the impression that in some way, All Might was Midoriya's personal hero, an idol. Not only a symbol of peace, but a symbol of hope. Maybe his own personal hope. The only thing worse than one is none indeed. With the urgent need to make things right bursting up inside of him, the hero once again raised his hand and began to take a step toward and to call out to the young man, only to pause as he saw the form of Nezu stepping out of the shadows with a paw outstretched in a stop position. The blonde hero blinked and looked at the creature, who only waited for the green-haired teen to get out of earshot before saying, "Yagi-san, please stop now. Go home, and then see me in my office tomorrow. Because nothing you do or say right now will make anything better. It may even make it worse. Besides, I already set something in motion to handle it. But I caused this. I failed him in the most profound way. I should be the one to make amends," came the inevitable ejection from the failed hero. "Yes, you did," the principal bluntly confirmed. "And any attempt to go back on your words from earlier will just make it appear you're doing it out of guilt. The young man won't accept it, just like he didn't accept what you had to say this time. Besides, you're not what he needs at this moment. Not if what I've seen and heard is any indication. I have someone set to help him, who is connected enough to get him what help he needs. I dare say, With that power of his, he could make a fabulous hero. Yes, a fabulous hero indeed. The rat bear thing said with a Cheshire-like grin spreading on his face. Yagi wasn't sure if he should be comforted or worried. Alright, y'all. Long chapter, but hope y'all enjoyed it. If you have any comments or suggestions or requests, please feel free to let me know in the comments. Let me know what you thought. Also, if you like this content, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And with that said, I hope y'all enjoyed and have a great rest of your day or night. See you later.